Going to do a quick video for one of the subscribers. He asked a question. He goes by I'm a Nut. Can't make that up. Ingersoll Rand 2340. That is a two-stage compressor. Big piston does most of the work. Little piston finishes it off, goes into the tank, hence the two-stage. Not super duper noisy, but noisy enough. Spins real quick. 5-horse motor, 6-inch pulley, which puts this almost at where it's at its best. Now, when you buy this on a 60-gallon tank with a motor, the whole unit is between $3,100 and $3,700, and you get a nice beige Ingersoll Rand tank. But I had a 60-gallon tank. I had already bought a replacement motor a month before my pump did whatever it did. So I don't know about you buy these. I think they're about 18, maybe $2,000 now, because it was last year that I changed it, brand new. Motor, $500, like 400 and something plus tax. Just a US motor, 5 horsepower. And what's the RPM? And that's the main thing. You just want to make sure your RPM, well, I don't know where it is, but it's here somewhere. I'm just not seeing it. You're probably looking at it and I can't even see it. But anyway, the RPM of this motor is the same as what would have came on the compressor from Ingersoll. Everything is matched the way it should be. This works great. The question that I was asked was about water. That just dumps into the tank. I don't have an aftercooler. You got a little bit of that between the two pistons. I never had an issue with water too much. I drain the tank every day. And when I know I'm going to be painting in a day or two, I start draining it a few times a day. This is the hose that transitions from the tank to the wall. I have it run up and back down. So the idea is a lot of condensation will sit in this and come down. It'll sit right in here. You let it out. There, a little puff of water shot out. I open that, water shoots out. I keep my hose down. I lay it flat on the floor, put a blower on the end or whatever you call it, and let air out for a couple minutes. That should take any moisture out of the line after you've made sure this is all as dry as can be. Now, that's not as dry as it should be. I run one of these on my gun all the time. I'd like to not do that, but I've gotten used to it. I also run a gauge. So that regular, I can set it, regulator, I set it about 65, where this guy I can go between the 20 and 30 and be in my happy place. ProTech, 4500. It's about a $250 gun. I was in a jam. I ordered this. I've been painting with it for like a year and a half, and I like it. Okay for base coat. It's amazing with the clear. Or yeah, wait. It's good with clear. You got to watch, but you got to watch your clear anyway. It's awesome with base coat. So I might buy a higher end gun that atomizes a little bit better for the clear coat. Something I would recommend. I just pulled this out of the box to look at it. Yeah, benchmark. Why would you have this? If anything goes wrong, you need a new gun in the box that you can grab, blow a bit of thinner through, reducer, put paint in it and run. Now, I had issues last year where first my regulator exploded. Like a month later, my compressor stopped, or the compressor motor quit. Then I had to change the pump. Anyway, long story short, I got this little 2-horse, what is this, SS3. 2-horse motor, little twin compressor. Can't keep up to sanding. Sort of can. It's a 30-gallon. It's not bad. But it's quiet. I actually use it. So not only is that, if mine fails, plug that in, keep painting, because you don't got time to diagnose and play with stuff halfway through a job or in between coats, whatever the case may be. I'll simply run a hose right underneath my booth in there and work on it. Now, that being said, for a big compressor, that thing over there is fairly quiet. But that thing sounds like an old 3-horse Johnson boat motor from the 50s. It's like boop, 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 you know, it's like bubbles. So the cool thing is, if 2 people are in here and working, when it comes on, you don't stop talking, you just talk a little bit louder. So I actually use that compressor for, not when I'm sanding down a whole car per se, or doing a lot of grinding, but like when I'm working on this car, I'm doing a lot of stuff by hand. But like I'll come into a place like that. Now this is near the end where everything is super thin and almost, you know, the Bondo is, well, the filler is see-through. But what I'll often do is take my DA and, you know, kind of go over it real quick to get the bulk of it down. Then I'll jump into my blocks, finish it out. Then, I mean, I use that all day long. It works great. There's a hose connected to it. I was literally just using it when I'm doing a lot of sanding and a lot of crazy stuff. I run this because this will not only keep up. I think I have it set where it drops to about 105 and then it goes up to 155. It'll do that in like a minute and change. And if I'm running a sander, it takes about 2.5 minutes. But I mean, I keep sanding the whole time. I don't let this catch up, and it catches up anyway. Highly recommend that. I know they're expensive, the pump alone. This is like in Canada, $2,000. This is like $400 or $500. Or you spend $32,000 to $4,000 and you buy the whole unit as one. I had this tank, didn't have to do that. So I saved a little bit, but had I known I was buying both, I would have just bought the whole tank. But I bought this, and then the pump failed, so then I replaced the pump. And it wasn't that the little pump that came with this failed. It actually worked quite well, but it was like a single stage or a one phase or whatever. Anyway, 2 pistons, but not a 2-stage, right? It's just one, then the other, then the other. It was pretty noisy, and you get tired of listening to that. This is a little better for sure. But as far as water goes, that's all I've been doing. But I've noticed lately we've had a real humid few weeks, and I'm noticing I'm getting a little bit of water here and there. So what I'm going to do is put a manifold here and a T. I'm going to move this over. I'm going to put 2 lines so I can run 2 lines into the shop, and then I'm going to put a hard line all the way to the back of the booth. And I think I'm going to throw one of those, well, we call them Princess Auto, but down in the States you guys call them Harbor Freight. I'm going to put one of those desiccant bead dryers, one of the great big ones down there. They're a couple $100, but we'll put one down there. And then I'll also have another regulator and everything right in the booth. And the cool thing about that is that whole line coming out, it'll be about 30 feet to the wall from the compressor. Then I'm going to go up and down, which will give me 50 feet. So the air coming into the regulator and whatnot at that point, they say 50 feet is the sweet spot to where you've got no water or nothing. So I might do that and then have a couple drains. So if I run everything slightly downhill, the water ends up in the drain, you can drain it. Whatever you missed will get caught in the desiccant, the water separator, and then, you know, your regulator. So I think that'll take care of anything. Plus you wouldn't be using that line all the time. And when I come out of here, I'll tee off and I'll run a dog leg. Now this isn't really a dog leg, but basically you can see how this goes up and down. A lot of the water that comes out of here will get caught in this loop. It'll run down into here, and a little bit will run into here. And here's the thing. This used to just come straight out and go to this. I used to get a lot of water in this a couple times a day, but now I get a little bit of water in this, but 3-4 times a day I blow this out and bit of water. Like, that always lets moisture go. So I know that that is doing something. So when I come out of here, I'll make sure I run like a chunk, like a 1 foot with another valve on it. so that this line can go up a piece before it runs down the wall. Like I might even go way up there and run it down the wall. And then a lot of that'll fall right into the dog leg. You can release it. Once I get up there, run it to the back. I'll make sure it goes downhill slightly so that, the water gets to the end and goes up and down or whatever it does. But make sure you have some valves. And again, I'll put a dog leg on it. The dog leg theory came to me from my heat guy. And if you look at, let's see if I can capture this. So when the propane comes in from outside, it comes in the yellow line, goes through the valve, and then it goes up the T into the unit. There's the dog leg. And I said, what's that for? He goes, the water falls in there, all the condensation, because it's easier for it to go there than up. And I said, well, how do you drain it? And he goes, well, you don't. It just dries. Now, this won't just dry because you're using it so much, right? You're compressing the air, compressing all the moisture. But even this works. So having a bit of a dog leg here and here, even one in the back before the desiccant dryer. I think that's the way to go. That's what I'm going to do about my water problem, which isn't much of a problem. Like I say, if I keep this drained, especially a couple days before I paint, I'll start draining it a few times a day. I keep those drained, and I drain those too. Now this one I don't, because these tend to get sticky and weird sometimes. I'm going to be replacing this soon anyway, and I'm probably going to put a great big one, maybe with a filter in. We'll see. But I drain this one between every coat as I go in and out of that booth. And this one, I'll do all the base coat, and then I'll drain it, and then I'll go do my clear coat. So, and again, you can only get away with that if you're going to run one of these to catch the little bit that you've missed. So thanks for the question. I'm a nut, and I hope that's helpful. I'm pulling off some pretty nice jobs without doing anything with water, short of a 50-foot hose running into my booth that I'm shooting out of. And, just some really basic stuff, a little common sense about drainage. Now, a smaller compressor, and this is one thing I do know, if I run a slightly smaller compressor that I have to run harder, it creates more water because it gets hotter. Where this, you can touch it and it's lukewarm when it runs hard. Like, you feel it. Now, of course, the pipe gets hot, but the little compressor with the 3-horse motor, or the little twin single stage, whatever, this thing would get like really hot. And I found you had more water with that. This system kind of works better with the bigger stuff. Probably because it doesn't have to work as hard. But, I mean, you are condensing the same amount of air for all the air you're using. So the theory could be that there's a lot of water anyway. But like I say, I'm going to have to do a little bit of work to solve my water problem. A little piping, dryer in the back. This works good enough that I know that one of those $200-300, the big long desiccant dryer in the back, will be more than enough for me. The other thing I thought of doing, and I saw this in a factory. They had the hose come out of here. It went down, and they had a 50-foot copper roll of hose in a bucket of water. Then it came back out and went into here. And what it would do, and then there was a drain in it, like a little pop drain. But anyway, so what that would do is every time it would pump, the air would go through 50 feet of hose in the water and it would cool. So by the time it goes in the tank, and I thought this was pretty brilliant, by the time it goes in the tank, it's cold. You get almost no condensation as opposed to lots of condensation. And when it kicks off, the little check valve down there basically works the same as this guy right in here. So what happens is when it stops, the little check valve in the water bucket releases a shot of air to empty the line, which gurgles out of the water, pushing the condensation out with it. The only downside, you got to make sure your bucket, as it evaporates, you got to make sure it stays full. And maybe you don't even have to do that, because technically you have your 50 feet of line. And I've seen where guys have come out of here and just ran up and down a bunch of, 50 feet of line up and down, put a bunch of valves at the bottom, and then back in the tank. I've also seen guys come out of here, go into like a car radiator, or was it an AC condenser on the wall, and then into here. They claim that worked too, but there's options. For me, because I know this works almost, desiccant dryer at the back, a little bit of line work with a couple valves will be good. So that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, that's enough for today. Long enough video. Highly recommend this. 1, 2, maybe 3 guy shop. It works. I'm happy with it. You can get more for a lot more money. You can get a lot less for the same money. I'm happy with this. The 2-stage, a little slower than a 1-stage twin, but it doesn't run hard, and it can run continuous. And hey, for me, sanding nonstop, this thing doesn't have to run continuous ever. So that's the minimum I would buy if you're doing any of this at all beyond once a year. If you're a hobbyist and you paint a couple cars and a motorcycle and a bunch of other stuff, if you can swing a little bit of cash to get that, or an equivalent to that. Definitely a 2-stage. When you need a lot of air quick in a mechanic shop, no, you don't need a 2-stage. But if you're running anything continuous and a lot of sanding, that will take the abuse. You don't have to rebuild them half as much. According to my brother-in-law, he's the tech that knows all this stuff. He figures this, even in my shop, likely lasts me my life. So anyway, that's enough of a video. Thanks for the question. Cheers.